comes to character creation in Oblivion, it can be a confusing process of just how to make the best build for your tastes, especially if you're a newcomer to the Elder Scrolls series. Building your Tamrelic alter ego is comprised of 3 elements, first of which is your race and sex. Before choosing your race though, you need to consider what type of specialization you want to focus on. Combat, stealth, or magic. That is, battle rushing your enemies, sneaking around and cheap-shotting opponents, or summoning creatures, shooting fire, ice, lightning, and altering your enemies' attributes to fell threats. Each race is initially geared towards a different specialization, except the Imperial, who only has a high personality and is the only race perfect for social interaction. For a combat focus, Nords, Redguards, and Orcs are the best of choices. Off in the shadows for stealth, the prime options are Wood Elves, Khajiit, Dark Elves, and male Argonians. Last but certainly not least, the high scores for book smarts and magic come from Bretons, High Elves, and female Argonians. The race stats do go a bit deeper though. If you're interested, you can check the race and sex link in the video description for full information. Most of the things that you find in the tutorial are really of little use, and there's not much that you need beyond apparel and offensive equipment. There are a lot of things to pick up though, and since your primary goal from the beginning of the game is probably going to be gaining wealth, you should look for things that have a good gold to weight ratio. In this room and the next, you can pick up almost all the armor and weapons that you're going to need for the rest of the tutorial, and mostly what I wear for the first few levels outside of this dungeon. There are also some elements that I strongly suggest grabbing while in the tutorial. One of the things that I find to be crucial for an easier start is the Chameleon Scroll, which can be found on the Dead Goblin. Though not necessary, it is very helpful in attaining some useful artifacts as soon as you leave the sewers ahead. I prefer light armor over heavy, so I mostly stick with just that. But since endurance is so important in the game, I also wear 2 pieces of heavy armor to raise that attribute. The reverse is generally true with any character I've played who uses heavy armor, in which I wear 2 light pieces to raise my speed attribute. Since at this point you'll almost have all the equipment you'll need, it's a good idea to start grabbing things that have a fair sell value, so you can get some cash whenever you exit the dungeon. As you continue through the cave, it's a good idea to pick up as many food items as you can find. I'm not talking about just any food though. For instance, rat meat is a little bit excessive. I'm primarily speaking of anything that has an alchemic effect of restore fatigue. You can see these effects when you highlight ingredients on the menu screen. For the most part, items that have the restore fatigue attribute are things that you would consider real food, such as cheese, apples, tomatoes, leeks, and lettuce to name a few. Now, right here, it's important to pick up this mortar and pestle. It'll save you time of having to acquire one later. One of the largest complaints involving Oblivion is that in the beginning of the game, you don't have enough money. Alchemy is a skill that can, with little work, ease and remedy your low cash flow problems. You don't necessarily need to have alchemy as a main skill either. You just need the equipment and know-how for it to be beneficial.
It's that prisoner again! Kill him! He might be working with the assassins!
No, he is not one of them. They cannot listen. I know these stars well, and I wonder which sign marked your birth.
When it comes to your choice of birth sign, the safest and best bets are the signs that give you attribute bonuses. There are 3 specific signs that are ideal to each class: the Thief, the Lady, and the Warrior. My personal favorite is the Thief because of its boost to luck, which affects everything in the game in some manner. However, the Lady and the Warrior have the Endurance boost, which is a massive benefit. Endurance is by far, hands down, the most important attribute in the entire game of Oblivion. The reason for this is because of how the game calculates your health. How much endurance you have whenever you raise levels decides how much your maximum health will increase whenever you raise your level. So obviously, you want high endurance from the start of the game, and also want to raise it as fast as you can.
There are rats and goblins down there, but from what I've seen of you, I'm guessing you're an experienced bard. Am I right?
Now for one of the most difficult and messy things to deal with and decide upon: your class. Your class defines what skills you will mainly focus on in order to raise your level. I suggest that you don't accept the assumed class they give you, since, from what I frequently see, it's rarely how you will actually play the game after you leave the tutorial dungeon. For a first playthrough though, I suggest choosing a pre-existing class. However, if you want to be a bit more fine-tuned and create a custom class, there are a few rules that I have that will help you. First off, you should choose a weapon skill no matter what your primary focus is in battle. You will be forced into melee combat eventually. Don't take both either, you only need one. There's no reason to have both blunt and blade. The same goes for armor, you only need one. You shouldn't skip this either. Even if you're a mage who only wears robes, you can still wear gauntlets all the time. Right in line with your defensive garbs is armorer. This is a skill that's crucial to being able to raise your endurance quickly, and it saves you time of having to go to town to get your gear repaired. When it comes to magic, there are spells that will be beneficial to every specialization. For stealth and combat characters, I suggest illusion since it will enable you to see in the dark without having to hold a torch, freeing up your shield arm, or making you disappear altogether, allowing you to sneak past difficult places. I also encourage restoration or destruction, since healing will always be a frequent action, and offensive spells will occasionally work better where weapons fail. An important element to remember whenever you make a custom class in Oblivion is that unlike its predecessor Morrowind, the game mechanics are much more focused on classes with a single specialization. If you choose to rely heavily on two different specializations, it will be much more difficult to reap the maximum attribute bonuses during level up. Returning to the idea of using a pre-designed class, I'll quickly sum them all up into their specialization categories. Combat is composed of the Archer, Barbarian, Crusader, Knight, Rogue, Scout, and Warrior. Stealth is made of Acrobat, Agent, Assassin, Bard, Monk, Pilgrim, and the Thief. Magic consists of the Battle Mage, Healer, Mage, Nightblade, Sorcerer, Spellsword, and Witch Hunter. You should take note that if you use a pre-designed class, you will likely have a skill that you will rarely level up, which can hinder you from reaching your maximum level when you close in on endgame character status. Okay, now it is absolutely crucial that before you leave the sewer at the gate here, you save your game and never delete it. This save is one of the most important in the game. If you ever feel like you want to start a new game, then you can load this save up, and just before you exit the sewer, you can edit all of your character aspects. Race, sex, birth sign, class, everything. Using this method you can totally avoid all the annoyance of being taught how to play the game again when you already know how.